What's up, guys? So I just want to jump right into it. It's Friday. It's like go time. Let's go. Here's what I want to tell you. Before there was this, there was this, there was this. I'm going to tell you what this is. The late Jim Rohn said that you're going to be the average of your five closest relationships. Look around. Look at your cell phone. Who's the people that you've been messaging? Look at your phone calls. Who's the people in your call history? Like, who have you been talking to? What have you been talking about? Have you been talking about all the chaos and all the craziness and all the whatever that's going into the world? Or do you have a group of people around you in your corner who's spurring you on, who's encouraging you to push to the things, push to the goals, push to the dreams, push to that version of yourself that you want to be? I had a pastor when I first started out. His name's Pastor Ben Duncan. Benjamin Duncan was in the military. He was my first pastor church I ever served at in North Carolina. And Ben would start every Monday morning at 0900, and he would ask me two questions. Pastor Ben would ask me, or actually weren't even questions. He would say, John, the wounds of a friend are faithful, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. I knew it was coming. And number two, he would say to me, just as iron sharpens iron, so does a man sharpen the countenance of his friend. Yes, that is my letter opener, just so you know. So that's a bad letter opener right there. So what I want to say to you is, who is in your life? Who's in your corner? Who's around you, spurring you on? Who's around you, encouraging? Do you have a team in your corner? So 3.5, 4 years ago, I joined a community called the Dad's Edge Alliance. At the time, it was called the Good Dad Project. And this was a mastermind community. And I'll explain what mastermind is in just a moment. But it was a mastermind community around the idea of how do we pursue excellence in our own life in the various parts of our life, whether it be physical health or financial health, or particularly the affinity of the group. What brought us all together was fatherhood. How do we show up to be better dads, right? How do we do that? How are we better in our relationships with our wives, our spouses, our significant others? And so I just want to tell you guys, I've been a part of this group now for about 3.5 years, 4 years. I think it's 4 years. I don't know. It's been so good. Time flies. My point is, these guys, I'm just going to tell you, I don't know that Life That Counts would exist if it wasn't for this group. I don't know if I would have made it through some of the things that I've made it through over the last 4 years if it wasn't for this group. I know I wouldn't be the father to my kids that I am today. I know that I wouldn't be the husband to my wife, Alexis, that I get to be today if it wasn't for this group. And what I want to encourage you on is this: you have got to find that group for you. You've got to find that group for you. You've got to have people that's willing to listen to you. They're willing to hear you out. They're willing to invest in you. They're willing to tell you the hard truths, right? They're willing to call you on the lies that you feed yourself. I see Cameron Becknon. Cameron, dude, thank you for being on, because you know what? Cameron's one of those guys in my life. Cameron is the reason that I'm doing this video right now, because Cameron's like, John, you have got to stop self-editing. You've just got to put out content. And that's why I'm doing this, because Cameron's like, dude, put out content. Who's in your corner? Who's those people behind you? You will be the average of your five closest relationships. You will be. What content are you consuming? What media are you consuming? What are you filling your head with? And I want to encourage you, find a community. If you're a dad and you feel isolated or alone in this world, if you feel like you could benefit from having a group of folks in your life to help encourage you on, to help spur you on, look up these guys. Dad's Edge Alliance. You can find the podcast, iTunes, wherever podcasts are, Stitcher, whatever, the Dad's Edge podcast. I got to be episode 116, and you know what? It was such an honor to do that, because I'm just Joe Blow John coming in off the street, and I listened to this podcast one day. I want to tell you the story. I'm going to go ahead and tell you the story. I'd already began to turn my fitness around. I started this journey over 300 pounds, 320 pounds. I had a size 54 in the waist. I was married to my job. I was serving as a student pastor. I'm the reason Taco Bell created the fourth meal. And I was never at home for my wife. I was never at home for my kids. I was doing the Lord's work, right? Because we can justify that, right? We find ways to justify ourselves. And I was justifying myself. And then I had this health scare back several years ago, and I went to my doctor. My doctor told me, he said, man, he wanted to put me on triglycerides he wanted to put me on Lipitor and several other things because my triglycerides were well over 500. My triglycerides were 535. A normal person's triglycerides, that's the amount of fat in your bloodstream going through your heart. Normal person's between 75 and 125. Mine was 535. And Jeff told me, my doctor, he said, man, you got 6 months before you have a massive heart attack. And he said, you know that dream, how you want to be there for your wife and how you want to be there for your kids? Well, you're probably not going to unless you change something. He wanted to put me on all these meds. I said, Jeff, I don't want Lipitor. I don't want a medicine cabinet full of drugs. I said, man, I want something else. I said, I want a natural path to health. And so Jeff gave me a natural path. Fish oil, niacin, multivitamin. He said eat lean meat. So I did that. And so for years and years. And then, man, you talk about somebody who turned their fitness around. Like I went from a 54 in the waist to like a 32 in the waist and six-pack abs and squatting over 600 pounds and benching 225 for 54, like better than NFL combine numbers, right? In my 30s, I was doing that. I'd completely turn it around. But then this one night, I catch myself, I hear myself. I'm yelling at my oldest son at the time, who's 11. I'm just yelling, just scream, top of my lungs. And I'm a big dude. And this is when I'm in shape and into fitness and all this. I'm yelling at him, top of my lungs. He's 11. Like, why? You don't yell at 11, man. Like, you don't yell at 11, dog. Like, what is up with that? You're messed up if you yell at 11. But I did it. I can't even remember what for. Spit flying out of my mouth. And the next day I'm walking through the gym and I'm the only one in there. And I'm walking between things and I look out of the corner of my eye and I see this big old ripped swole dude. I mean, just swole nation, hashtag swole dude, right? And I'm like, man, that guy's jacked. And then it hit me. That guy was me. You think I would be happy. You think I would have been proud of myself in that moment. I was not proud of myself in that moment. I was embarrassed and I cried. I began crying in the gym, both sides. And I went over to the tricep extension. And on the way over there, I was in the podcast at this time and I typed in good dad in the podcast because you know what? I wanted to be a good dad because I didn't feel like I was being a good dad to my kids. I didn't feel like I was being a good husband to my wife. And I type in good dad and this title comes up, Good Dad Project. And I'm like, hey, that's me. I'm a project and I want to be a good dad. And I start listening to this podcast and I start listening to this Dr. Benjamin, somebody who's talking about Champions Blueprint for Success. And he starts talking about how he and his wife adopted this little girl from like South America and they bring her into their home and they don't know her medical history. And he talks about, and it's just with the softest, kindest, most gentle voice, this guy's like dispensing love and affection out of his mouth on this audio coming through my ears through this podcast. I'm listening to this guy and I'm like, can I just change right quick into this guy? Can I be that? Can I be that affectionate father for my kids? So I began chipping away. Just like in the gym, once upon a time, I began putting in the reps. In this moment, I began chipping away. I began learning how to be a good father, a good dad, a dad to my kids. Because it doesn't matter how swole you are. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter how many reps you can push. It doesn't matter how good you look naked. None of that matters if you don't have the respect and adoration and love and affection of your kids and of your wife. None of that matters, man. That's all baloney. If you don't have the respect of those under your own roof, like none of the other things matter. And it hit me, and I was like, what? It doesn't matter if I live till I'm 85 years old. It doesn't matter if I have a good long life. If my wife wants nothing to do with it, it doesn't matter if I live to like whatever. It doesn't matter if I'm the swollest pops in the room if my kids don't even want me to be in the room. And I'm listening to these podcasts over and over and over, and then I hook up with these guys, the Dad's Alliance, the Dad's Edge Alliance. That's what DEA stands for. And I'm listening to this, man. And I'm listening to these podcasts, and I get on these masterminds. And then I got into these groups with these other men, and it 100% began to change my life. And now I have the opportunity to lead these calls, to lead to, there's like almost 30 calls, 40 calls that happen weekly with almost 400 men from around the world in this community. The podcast gets downloaded 1 million times a week, I think, something like that, maybe more. There's like over 20,000 guys in like this big group on Facebook or whatever. But there's these 500 or so guys who are committed to meeting weekly and showing up on these Zoom video calls. And I made a post last night about this fellow named Jason Palmer. Jason Palmer is one of the men in my dad's calls. And Jason Palmer was there from the beginning, and I've got to know this guy. And this is like big, burly, truck driving, like axe slinging, like, guy, but he's a foster father, and he has so many foster kids in and out of his home with his wife. And I've got to experience life with Jason Palmer, and I've got to see this man and his big heart. I mean, the guy drives a gas tank truck for a living, like a big tanker, but he's got the biggest heart. And I've got to experience community with this guy, and I've got to do one-on-one calls with this guy, and this guy pours into me, and I get the opportunity to share with him, And I want to encourage you, man, it's about experiencing community in your life. Who is in your corner? Who is encouraging you? Who is spurring you along? Who is holding you accountable? Who doesn't let you wallow in your own BS? Because we can make excuses, right? I made excuses as a youth pastor. I was doing the Lord's work, and even though I was doing God's work, I wasn't showing up for my wife and kids. So, man, I want to encourage you. If you're a father, look them up. Look us up. Find a community. Send me a DM. If you're not, but if you're looking for a community, if you're looking for a place to belong, man, message me. Let me be a resource for you. Let our organization be a resource for you. Let us help you find your path. Here's the truth. I absolutely believe inside every one of us there is something of such a great worth and intrinsic value. I believe inside of every one of us we all have a big, massive gift that we can give to the world. But sometimes it takes others in our life, just like I believe it was Michelangelo who made the David. We need others in our life who can see that David underneath all that stone. That's my encouragement to you guys. I hope you have an amazing weekend, an amazing Friday. If you're just jumping in and missed everything that preceded, hey, I'm going to post it. Look, my name's John Williams. I get to lead an organization called Life That Counts. And man, I want to encourage you, just like we encourage everybody we contact. We exist to help people make better decisions for more healthy outcomes. Y'all have a great day. Looks like there's a lot of lag in this video. I don't know why. I hope it came through okay. Y'all be cool, guys.